I want to show you the latest example of Trump's bizarre obsession with the size of his crowds coming back to haunt him once again. But before we get to that, I need to walk you through some context. You, of course, remember that Trump really hasn't recovered mentally, because he keeps bringing it up at rallies, from Harris at the debate saying this.
Instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
And that was brilliantly placed after she made the point we've been making on the show often about how Republicans at the direction of Trump actually shot down that once-in-a-generation border security bill. So Trump's credibility on that topic, even though it's his favorite, is diminished, like the size of his crowds. But she put that there because then he actually struggled to get back effectively and make the points about the border to refute what she said that he'd probably want to make, and instead got fixated on, no, people don't leave my rallies, but nobody goes to hers. And then it stayed on his mind. And he brought this up at the town hall with Sarah Huckabee Sanders.
She said, I don't think I've ever said this before. So we do these rallies, they're massive rallies. Everybody stays till the end, by the way. You know, when she said that, well, your rallies, people leave. Honestly, nobody does. And if I saw them leaving, I'd say, and ladies and gentlemen, make America great again, and I'd get the hell out, okay? Because I don't want people leaving. But I do have to say, so I give these long, sometimes very complex sentences and paragraphs, but they all come together. I do it a lot. I do it with Raising Cane, that story. I do it with the story on the catapults on the aircraft carriers. I do it with a lot of different stories. When I mention Dr. Hannibal Lecter, I'm using that as an example of people that are coming in from Silence of the Lambs. I use it. They say, it's terrible. So they say, so I'll give this long, complex area. For instance, that I talked about a lot of different territory. The bottom line is, I said, the most important thing. We're going to bring more plants into your state and this country to make automobiles. We're going to be bigger than before. But the fake news, there's a lot of them back there. You know, for a town hall, there's a lot of people. But the fake news likes to say, oh, he was rambling. No, that's not rambling. That's genius when you can connect the dots. You gotta.
We'll be right back to the video. Just really quickly, if you're not already, I would appreciate you clicking that subscribe button. We are really close to 1 million subscribers. You can help us get there. Easy, free way. And then we do have merch at lukebeasleymerch.com with Harris as a promo code. You can get free shipping. Super cool election-themed merch. Check it out. Back to the video. So he provided the pressure point by talking so often about the size of his crowds. But Harris finally was strategic enough, and I say finally compared to just a lot of Democratic politicians haven't used the art of triggering Trump to their advantage, finally pushed on that pressure point, leaving him, even if you're a Trump supporter, you have to admit, that's a pretty wandering, embarrassing thing to have to say during a town hall. Not talking about policy, but talking about, oh, I have great rallies, and also whenever I ramble, they say that I'm rambling. They say that my rambling is causing people to leave my rallies. People aren't leaving my rallies, but my rambling is actually genius because I connect the dots all by the end, and if you don't understand that, that's a you problem. That actually doesn't come off well at all, and he keeps bringing it up. She broke his brain through, again, just triggering him. She had to do it once. And it's been stuck in his head ever since. And because he got so upset, now people are monitoring his rallies for how many people are going to leave while he's still speaking. And we keep getting video after video as his rallies throughout the weeks go on, and more people are leaving.
Because this lunatic and her. She's so much worse. She was here. Engine is now being coming in. You don't have the television guys all over, but the real military, you can put them in a room for 2 years and scream, walk at them, and when they walk out, because
So he's still talking here, sped up, so that we can get the gist quicker. But certain sections emptying out. We talked about that on yesterday's bonus show. You can get access to the bonus show by clicking the join button. We also have videos like this. You can hear him talking in the background.
The African Americans, the workers from all over the world came here legally. They're down 6% under Crooked Joe. And you know, I had an idea because it's not as...
And you get the point on that. People just pouring out while he's still going. And at the Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania rally some time ago, in person, we were there. You witnessed the same thing. Very quickly, people start walking out, which is wild given that some of them waited so long to get in. But then, I guess, getting bored or too hot at the outdoor ones or something, and leaving very, very quickly. So, before getting to the main subject of this that I want to play for you, Trump's wrong when he says people don't leave. They're pouring out. They're running out throughout his rallies. And that's not the most important thing in the world. Correction, it's really not that important. Yeah, it shows he's getting more boring, but what does that mean to people in their lives with the impact of real policy discussions? Essentially nothing. The reason why it's become such a focus, why Obama brought it up at the Democratic National Convention, is because it represents how petty and selfish and self-focused Trump is. Which is why Harris made a great point. He's obsessed with that. He sees the aesthetics that make him seem strong as the most important thing. Her message was, actually care about you. And it's an interesting contrast. And the fact that Trump keeps taking the bait, even after the big takeaway from the debate was, don't take the bait, Trump. Otherwise, he ends up getting wound up into talking about things that don't help him politically at all, which is great for us to watch. Terrible if you want Trump to do well. And so Harris decided, you know what? Let's keep this going. Why don't we? And watch how smoothly, I'm going to play the full context of this clip in her MSNBC interview with Stephanie Ruhle. And you know this is going to get under Trump's skin so much. Look how casually she throws in a comment about his obsession.
Steelworkers matter in this country. Unions matter.
Yes.
In 2016, Donald Trump connected with unions. He saw them. There was an emotional connection. But what he didn't do was deliver policy. In the last 4 years, we have seen huge wins in this country for unions, but not all unions have gotten behind you. I want to understand, when the Teamsters decided not to endorse you, what was their reasoning? What are they looking for?
Well, let me go back to our just previous conversation. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the steelworkers and almost every other major union in America, because I stand by workers and I stand by the importance of being able to join a union and to understand the benefit and the value of unions. And I understand the importance of investing in new industries and working actively with the private sector to grow our economy.
But I'm asking because there's this idea we want something more from her. What is it?
Well, here's the thing, that back to your point about previous election cycles, Donald Trump made a whole lot of promises that he did not meet, and one would argue broke. Look at Lordstown. He said he was going to...
Don't sell your homes.
Yeah, don't sell your homes. And what happened? It shut down. Outsourcing under Donald Trump. His policies that are about putting, tens to hundreds of % tariffs.
John Deere.
Yes. Yes. So part of the challenge, and I don't disagree that it's a challenge, got to earn the vote of everybody, is reminding people of fact, regardless of what somebody says in a small rally somewhere. And I think that's really important. And that's part of what I'm doing in this campaign, is to remind people, just like here in Pittsburgh, of the reality of who has stood with union labor, who stands for...
So again, it's this part.
Vote of everybody is reminding people of fact, regardless of what somebody says in a small rally somewhere.
Oh, it's too good. Oh, he's going to hate it so much. Almost the fact that it wasn't so overt, because you go, a small, what did she do? Oh, makes it that much better. Because what is she saying? And by the way, this led to a BuzzFeed headline. Kamala Harris trolled Donald Trump's crowd sizes again, and this little jab is definitely going to set him off. Truth Social's about to be lit. You might be thinking that this is too petty. But it's not. And the reason is because she doesn't actually think that we should be putting a lot of emphasis on crowd sizes. It's interesting. Her crowds have been huge. Trump has had a lot of big crowds as well. That's actually not the most important thing in the world. But what is demonstrated whenever she makes a comment like that, Trump gets really upset, clearly because he is insecure about people leaving his rallies. He definitely sees that. And that upsets him. And so it's an insecurity of his. But way more important than that is her showing to people, like she did in the perfect split screen way on the debate stage, that if Trump can be this easily manipulated, or as I've been saying, played like a fiddle, if Harris on that debate stage can just, by saying a few things, spiral him out of control where he can't make the points that he went on stage to make about the economy or whatever, we don't want someone who's that easily manipulated as our president, who's that petty, that sensitive, who puts emphasis on all the wrong things as president. And that's why I think her bringing this up, not always in really overt ways like she did on the debate stage, but here like this, regardless of what Trump is ranting about, the fiction that he's ranting about in front of a small rally, let's talk about the facts, is the point that she's making. Regardless of him asserting at these small rallies, which many of them are actually big, but the venues actually have gotten smaller in recent weeks with some of his events. But regardless of that, whatever he's saying about him being pro-worker, it's not the truth. It's not the facts. Let's focus on the facts, regardless of what he's saying. And then throwing that in there, it doesn't distract from the point. Most people probably miss it, but it does get its way to Trump. That's why at rallies he brings up things that people are criticizing him. He really does focus on the criticisms of him, and this is going to get to him. And it's going to cause another clip to go viral of him at a rally saying, oh, no, people don't leave. And it just seems like he's a toddler. And then she can project strength and being an adult, contrasted against Trump. Now, by the way, because I played a clip from this MSNBC interview, let's watch a little bit more. And I just want you to focus on, actually in the next two clips, her ability to speak about policy as compared to Trump's. But in this first clip, it's just fun, her addressing the fact that Trump keeps claiming that she didn't work at McDonald's when she did.
Fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
And I want to just ask you about a little job and a big job.
Okay.
The first one, just a fact check. Okay. Because your opponent
there is
almost
no little
every
job.
day. Okay,
there's no such thing as a little job.
Okay, fair. Because your opponent almost every day seems to be talking about this. So I just want to ask you yes or no. At any point in your life, have you served 2 all-beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun, working out at McDonald's? Yes or no?
I just got so hungry. Dang it.
No, that's it.
I have.
Okay, now the other job. But
it was not a small job. Like, I did the fries. I mean, yes.
Okay, for a
but
small
I did.
period of time. But then let me ask about a big job.
But to your point, if you don't mind, before you get to the big job, there's a part of the reason I even talk about having worked at McDonald's is because there are people who work at McDonald's in our country who are trying to raise a family. I worked there as a student. I was a kid who worked there trying to raise families and pay rent on that. And I think part of the difference between me and my opponent includes our perspective on the needs of the American people.
Right. And then a nice, successful attempt to bring it back to policy. And then it really can get under my skin, but I'm in too good of a mood to let it. As MAGA has decided their big criticism of Harris is going to be she can't answer questions. And she's not clear on specifics. When number one, separate from what we're about to get to, which proves them wrong, and a bunch of past interviews we've reviewed that do the same, their guy, they have no leg to stand on. Their guy gets asked about childcare and for 2 minutes says a lot of words that mean nothing. Trump is increasingly so difficult to understand. I'll read you another transcript today after watching Harris, that even when you put it in text form and analyze it, it causes my brain to be sore. So, number one, you can't talk about that if you're supporting him. Number two, please, find me an example of Trump being able to specifically talk policy as Harris does casually in interview after interview, and then we can have a conversation, because this is sort of how you want politicians to answer questions, directly and specifically.
Taxes, because lots of people will say, I don't like Donald Trump, but he cut my taxes. He didn't just cut corporate taxes, he cut individual taxes. Now that expires next year, and there's some people confused saying, I don't know what's going to happen next year. Under a Harris administration, at what income level should someone expect their taxes to go up? And that state and local tax deduction that's currently capped and matters to a lot of people in blue states, are you going to lift that cap?
So, first of all, when it relates to anybody making less than $400,000 a year, your taxes will not go up. Your taxes will not go up. And in fact, under my plan, taxes for 100 million Americans will actually be cut, including $6,000 a year for young couples for the first year of their child's life in a tax cut, a tax credit, essentially, by expansion of the child tax credit. And why is that? Because during the first year of a young couple, of a person's child's life, they're going to need help buying a crib, buying a car seat. And we all benefit when they're actually able to do what they naturally want to do to take care of their child.
And expanding.
And it continues on. But asked about tax policy first, and you can, hearing it once, you can then recite it back in your head, as compared to when we hear Trump speak, and I'll analyze the transcript with you all for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, and I still am not any more clear on what he's even trying to say, much less what he did say. But there, okay, $400,000 per year. If you make less than that, you're not going to have your taxes increased. Great. Good for a lot of people to know that. And actually, she's outlined before, and so then she's just alluding to it there, that she has middle-class tax cuts that she's proposing. Then, a specific example for young families is in the first year of a child's life, you'll have a $6,000 enhanced child tax credit. And then we'll continue on with economic talk here.
The last 4 years, there have been tremendous economic wins, and you've just laid out a big plan. But still, polling shows that most likely voters still think Donald Trump is better to handle the economy. Why do you think that is?
Well, here's what I know in terms of the facts. Donald Trump left us with the worst economy since the Great Depression when you look at, for example, the employment numbers.
It was during COVID, and employment was so high because we shut down the government, we shut down the country.
Even before the pandemic, he lost manufacturing jobs by most people's estimates, at least 200,000. He lost manufacturing plants. Ask the auto workers how he lost auto plants. We have grown over 20 new auto plants. He has an agenda. Let's just deal with it right now going forward, not to mention what happened in the past. He has an agenda that would include making it more difficult for workers to earn overtime, an agenda that would include cutting off access to small business loans for small businesses, an agenda that includes tariffs to the point that the average working person will spend 20% more on everyday necessities and an estimated $4,000 more a year on those everyday necessities, to the point that top economists in our country, from Nobel laureates
to people at Moody's and Goldman Sachs have compared my plan with his and said my plan would grow the economy, his would shrink the economy. Some of them have actually assessed.
And that's true. And she continues on. We talked about that before. And I encourage you with all of these, no one's going to watch my videos if every single one of them is an hour long and me just dissecting an entire interview or an entire rally. And so I have to keep these a little bit more succinct. We're already dragging this one on. But I do encourage you always, when we watch little clips and you're thinking, well, that definitely wasn't the whole interview, go watch the full events, the full interviews, make your own judgments, and get more specifics than I'm able to show you here because a lot more was touched on. But just because it was recent, let's quickly compare those answers to Trump being asked an economic question. Hey, what will you do to lower costs? We watched this already, but now I'm going to read it to you. He said, first of all, she can't do an interview. She could never do this interview because you ask questions like, give me a specific answer. She talks about her lawn when she was growing up. This woman's not equipped to be president. She's not equipped to deal with President Xi. I took in hundreds of billions of dollars with him and Putin. We had no war with Putin. Remember, I'm just going to go off for this. With Bush, they took a lot. Russia. With Biden, they're trying to take everything. With Obama, they took a lot. With Trump, Russia took nothing. Just remember that. It's a little chart. But what happened? And when you look at what took place, was so sad. When they took over, they cut the oil way down, and oil started going through the roof. It was going to $10 a gallon. It was going to go to numbers that nobody has ever seen. And so they went back to the Trump drilling. This is false, by the way, but they said, let it go back. That was the only good thing, but they stopped because I would be there. But 4 years later, I would be triple what the number was. What? Right now, they're just about even where I was, but they only did that because of the fact that they eventually have an election coming up. And you remember at the beginning what happened. That's one of the reasons that Putin went in, because it went to $100 a barrel instead of $40 a barrel. And he could fight all the wars he wants with those kind of numbers because he's a big seller of oil and gas. So what happens if they went back to what I was doing? Just reopen. It wasn't hard. It's so crazy what they want to do. They're going to destroy lives. They're going to destroy what they have done to this country, and especially in the sense of allowing millions and millions of people to come in, because that's something, we can fix the gasoline situation and we can fix the anything. And then that's when the host jumps in. But they want you to believe, MAGA that is, it's Harris who can answer a question and Trump who answers questions directly. And this time, I'm not going to translate what he was saying. You probably can, but we shouldn't have to do so much work to translate what he's saying. Which, even if we derive meaning from it, is also false, his assertion. So there it is. Let me know what you thought in the comments. Support the show by clicking the join button below. And one last little rant that just popped in my head. You have a lot of people still in mainstream media, not just Fox News, making this claim over and over again. That, gosh, yeah, I get Trump's bad, but why is Harris not talking to the press ever? Why is she never doing an interview? Just because you got used to saying that doesn't mean it is always going to apply. Now, knowing this because I've covered them over the last week and a half, she's done how many interviews now? She's much more frequently doing interviews, much more frequently talking to the press. So don't just keep repeating that because it became a nice way to show that you have criticisms for both. Criticize both when criticism is justified. That no longer seems to apply, that one, given all these interviews dropping.